good morning, everyone. Today is the day number 4 and session number 8. Uh, and Let me welcome Dr. O.P. Yadav sir. He will be delivering his keynote lecture on possibilities and challenges for IoT in agriculture. Before starting, I'll read out a brief biodata of Dr. O.P. Yadav sir. He was born in Bawa, Rewari, India on 16th May 1963, educated at Bawa, Sehore from 1970 to 79 in Dayanand College, Hisar, 1980, and then from Haryana Agricultural University, Hisar, in 1980 to 1989. He did his BSc in 1984, MSc in 1986, and PhD in 1989. Currently, he is a director at Indian Council of Agricultural Research (ICAR) Central Arid Zone Research Institute, Kazri, Jodhpur, from 2015 to till date. He has served as scientist in National Academy for Agriculture Research Management during 1989 to 96, Directorate of Oilseeds Research, Kazri, then Associate Professor, Senior Scientist at Rajasthan Agricultural University, Kazri, and then Principal Scientist during 1996 to 2004. He was a visiting scientist at ICRIST, which stands for International Crop Research Institute for the Semi and Semi-Arid Tropics Institute. Um, he was project coordinator in Pearl Millet, then All India coordinator for Pearl Limit Improvement Project. He served as a director of Indian Institute of Maize Research, Pusa campus. He was awarded as a HAU Merit Fellowship in 1980 to 1989 and overseas fellowship by Department of Biotechnology from 2006 to 2007. Then he received INSA Royal Academy Fellowship in 2002 and ICRISAT Visiting Scientist Award in 1994, 96, and 2004. He is also Fellow of Indian Society of Genetics and Plant Breeding. His research areas include crop breeding, drought tolerance, and seed production. Actually, there are much more to Sir profile. Uh, Welcome, sir. Uh,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In fact, you have not identified yourself. Still, you are appearing as triple IT quota. So it's
uh,
difficult for me to address you by name. I'm sorry for that.
Myself, Dr. Parikshit. I am the coordinator for this FDP.
Okay,
Yes,
Parikshit,
sir.
thank you very much.
Yes.
You have been communicating with me, but this is
Yes.
the, in virtuality and the reality, there's a lot of difference. So I can see your smiling face. Thank you very much for the nice introduction.
Thank you, sir. Uh, Now hand over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Parikshit, once again. And I was just curious to know what is the background of the participants.
Uh, the participants are from a variety of fields. Mostly they are from electronics, computer science, but some of them are from, I think, variety of fields. Maybe participants themselves can say what are their areas.
Okay, thank you very much. And in fact, I'm a little bit surprised that none of the participant is in video mode.
Uh,
I'm not sure how seriously they are taking this course.
Data issues are because the speed will not work if all the people switch on the video. That is why, and the instruction of Professor, we are all in the
I need to look into the eyes of the people whenever
Yadav sir, actually,
One second. I think if we speak one by one, that would be great. Maybe Vitlani sir, can you turn on your mic?
okay. Yadav sir, actually, basically, to save the prime resources of information technology, all the participants are turning off their video. Otherwise there will be a bandwidth limitations, and some of them will get the intermittent voice, and it will create a lot of issues. And that's why actually all the participants have muted their video. But don't worry, sir, all the participants are listening very carefully, and they will also interact at the end of the session. So don't worry about that, sir.
Thank you very much for the
Okay.
clarification.
Yeah.
And let me try to share my presentation.
I'll brief you, sir. This FDP has been applied by 200 participants. There was a limit in the maximum number of participants of 200 that we can receive. And am I audible, sir?
You are audible. I am trying to share my presentation.
Yes, sir. And last 3 days, 140 that participants are attending this in uniformity. Out of 200 participants, 140 are attending, regularly.
I am getting a message of some error, but it seems that it will stay here, and I will try to do my presentation with this error window on, because it is not going, and it is saying that procedure entry point UCRT base dot abort could not be located in the dynamic link library. Then they have mentioned it.
We are able to see your screen.
Sir, it is perfectly okay. It is perfectly okay from our end. You can share and you can start, sir.
I have already shared it.
Can you change one or two slides?
Yes, okay. Let me. This is the slide number 2. Is it working?
Yeah, it's
Yes,
working,
sir.
sir. It's working.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It is coming in full screen mode.
Give me a couple of minutes.
Sure, sir.
नहीं गुस्सा में
Yeah, I'm all set. So, good morning, friends, once again. And let me thank in the beginning Dr. Prikshit Singh and Dr. Namita Mittal again for giving me this opportunity to interact with you in a virtual mode. And if at any given point of time you think that I'm not able to communicate very in a good mode, please raise your voice. In between, there are some issues in the virtual meetings that I assume that I'm reaching you, but I do not know whether it is fact or not. So please raise your voice if I'm not able to, one of you, if I'm not able to reach you because of the poor connectivity. But I assume that I'm able to reach you, and you will notice that there's a slight change in the topic, and it has been deliberately done, and it was done with the intention that now as a speaker I'm an expert from agriculture research and development, and probably most of you are professionally not working directly in Indian agriculture sector, but you are interested for working for agriculture, and how these technologies, latest inventions, latest technology and technological development can really help Indian agriculture to be more responsive, to be more productive, to be more economic. I think it's very important to bring these two sectors together. I'll take a brief. The outline of my presentation is very simple. I will take you to a journey of Indian agriculture, which I believe it should be of good interest to you because most of you are from the computer and electronic specialization. And Indian agriculture journey has been very interesting, very challenging, very fulfilling. And this is one thing which has delivered against all odds. Precisely, the journey will include where we were, where do we stand today, and in the process, what are the lessons that we have learned. Then I will also try to put before you what are the major challenges in farming of this country as on today. And those challenges have to be met, those challenges have to be addressed in a variety of ways. And if I include all those challenges, probably maybe one day will be less to really address all those challenges in a comprehensive way. So what I will do, once I highlight those challenges, then according to me, I'm an agricultural expert. I'm not a computer man, I'm not an electronic man. Then what is my expectation from the IoTs so that they can at least reduce the challenges that Indian agriculture is facing, or they can work hand in hand in agriculture sector, so that the two group of people having their expertise in the respective fields, they can come together. So let me tell you in the beginning that what is India as of today. As a country, when we study our geographical area vis-a-vis geographical area of the world, you will see that we are having only 2.4% of the world geographical area. It's very little. And then only 4.2% of the world share in water. With these two little contribution, look at next two contribution from India. We are having 17% of the world human population. superimposed by another 16% of world livestock population. So you can now see the fair amount of imbalance between geographical area available with us, water resources that we are having access to as a country, and then kind of the huge liability, huge human resource, huge livestock population, which are dependent on very low proportion, both in terms of geographical area and also in terms of the available water. And if you look at the area available for cultivation in this country, as on today, it is only 142 million hectares. Out of this, less than half is irrigated and remaining is rain-fed. Rain-fed means the farming totally depends on rainfall that is received either in the rainy season, summer season, or in the winter season. And you know it very well, particularly in the northern India and most part of our country, except the peninsular part, we don't get much winter rains. So the rain-fed farming is very, very important in our country. And if you look at the cropping intensity, which is nothing but the simple figure of 139% means only in 39% of area which is under farming, it is cultivated more than once in a year, which means only 39% area is having some amount of irrigation facility and remaining area is rain-fed, and we can take maximum one crop in 1 year. So what you always see that in the Kharif season, in the summer season, you grow rice, palm millet, maize, sorghum, but in the winter season, you grow wheat, chickpea, lentil, and some vegetables. We also need to understand that 52% population of our country is engaged in agriculture as a workforce. But this 52% of workforce in agriculture is contributing only 17% towards GDP, gross domestic product. So again, you will see a good amount of imbalance between input, when we define input as a workforce, as a human resource, and if we define GDP as output, again there is a good amount of imbalance. And the total amount of total contribution in terms of exports from agriculture is 12%, which amounts to 4 lakh crores of the rupees this country is earning from the exports of the agricultural commodity. Let it be grain crops, let it be fruits, let it be vegetables, it may be fish, it may be meat, it may be milk, it may be poultry products, but the amount that we are earning from agricultural exports is whopping amount, 4 lakh crores of the rupees every year. So this is the scenario of overall farming today. And when we look at the India's food basket, it is very diverse, very interesting. The two most important crops in our country are rice and wheat. Rice stands number 1 and wheat is number 2. Other range of the crops we grow, pulses, what you call in daily routine life dal, rapeseeds, which is basically oilseed crops. Most important component is the Indian mustard, जिसको हम हिंदी में सरसों भी कहते हैं. Then groundnut, another oilseed. Then fruits vegetables, sugarcane, meat, and milk. Now you see the rank of India in the production, and you see in most of the commodities except meat, we are in top 3. And if we exclude rapeseed, in which we are number 3, other commodities we all are either first in production or at the most second in production. This is something we all should be very proud of. But we should not forget at the same time that we are also number 2 in human population. If someone phone is ringing, and probably the person has to be, mute himself or herself, so that I don't get any kind of disturbance while I make my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind understanding. So friends, what I was saying, that though we are in either in number 1 position or number 2 position, but we should also remember that we are in number 2 position as far as human population is concerned. So that is offsetting, kind of offsetting what are achievements we have made or we are making or we will make in future. But when we look at in our past, the situation was not like this. When I got the opportunity to address your group in the opening ceremony of this faculty development program, I slightly gave a hint of this. I will spend 10 minutes or so on this so that you better appreciate what agriculture means in this country. If I start with 1951, that is the earliest data in our country available in the public domain. We had 36 crore of the population and only 50 million ton of the food grains. In next 10 years, our population up by another 36%. We expanded Indian population by more than 1/3 of what it was in 1951. And as a whole, we were deficit by almost 1 million ton. 1 करोड़ टन अनाज की हमारे देश में जबरदस्त कमी थी. This is the real picture of 1942 Bengal famine. You might have heard whenever you read history of our country, in which 35 to 40 lakh people died because there was no food available to them. British people called it Great Bengal Famine. I fail to understand in my lifetime so far how a famine that consumed, that killed 35 to 40 lakhs of people in our country, that was part of British, how it can be called great. Famines cannot be great. They are shame on humanity. And this shame is to the extent that we lost 35 lakhs to 40 lakhs of the human population for the simple reason that food was not available to them. I'm sure you will take this message to always remind each one of us that what are the phases we have come through. What was our situation when we were nearing our independence? At that time, there were two famous economists, Malthus and Malthus, both husband and wife. At that time, they were regarded as the most important economists in the world. And they predicted, after Bengal famine, that India cannot survive. India will disappear from the globe. India cannot sustain, because they couldn't sustain a drought of early 40s just for 1 year. And if such droughts or other calamities are repeated, it made them to predict that India is not going to survive. India's existence is sure to end. India has no option, and it earned a brand name of begging bowl. Whenever our Prime Minister or any political figure, they went outside India, either to Europe or US or some other parts of the country, they were always said that a person has come with a bowl in his or her hand, and it is a begging bowl. At that time, his Malthus, at that time, PL 480 scheme was launched in cooperation with US. And in that scheme, the red wheat, which was rejected by US population and was recommended for livestock consumption, that was sent to India for human consumption through these ships. So at that time, we were not hand to mouth. We were called people as with begging bowl, with ship to mouth. Indian population was waiting very badly for these ships to arrive from US through ocean route, so that we can feed our population. So that was the kind of situation. Maybe your grandparents for most of you, and my parents witnessed these kind of incidents, these kind of experiences. At that time, the then Prime Minister of India, Lal Bahadur Shastri, made a call that let us keep at least one fast in a week so that we can feed our hungry mouths of our own population. That was the kind of the food insecurity in this country, when the Prime Minister had to give a call to citizens of India that please don't eat, those people who have food, access to food, don't eat at least once in a week time, so that you can save some food, and that saved food can go to the people who are not having access to food. So that was the kind of the scenario we were having in our country till mid-60s. You know, Lal Bahadur Shastri became Prime Minister in 1964. So till mid-60s, I think it's just a matter of 60 years, 70 years, 60, 65 years to be precise. So those were the days this country has faced. And there was a solemn call given at every level that we need to increase our food production, and all the stakeholders, research, technology, delivery, policy, a solemn call was given by our Prime Minister and every leader that let us do something to prove Malthus and Malthus wrong. So imagine, my dear friends, the situation we are in today. Just 6 decades before, what was the kind of situation we were passing through? And once you remember this thing in your life to come for the next 3 or 4 decades, please always appreciate that this was the starting point of independent India, even till within 20 years of independent India, so that you become more sensitive to the people of this country, you become more sensitive to the farming community and what he has done, what this community has done for our country. I will take you through this my half presentation. but there is a hope. There was an era of hope. Right in 1962, this was the food production, this was the human population, and this was the area. In next 5 years, something wonderful happened in our country. And because of that, there was very little increase, only 3% increase in area, but 11% increase in human population. Fortunately, thanks to agricultural scientists, thanks to agricultural science, and thanks to many other people, which I will explain next slide, that we were able to change the food production by 28%. And this changed food production came through wheat. In 1963, our country was producing less than 10 million tons. In next 4 years, the wheat production was doubled from less than 10 to more than 20. So the gap of 10 million ton was immediately filled within 10 years. And it was termed by William Gord of USAID as Green Revolution, the term most of you might have been aware of. And you know the reason? It was for simple one intervention, a dwarfing gene in wheat, which was available in some lines. It was transferred to Indian wheats, that's all, by simple crossing tall wheat with dwarf wheat. And further progenies were selected. I will come to that later on in next slide. But appreciate the importance of this work. Norman Borlaug won Nobel Peace Prize for transferring these dwarfing genes from one line to Indian wheats. Norman Borlaug worked at that time in one of the CG Institute called as the CIMMYT, which is International Center for Maize and Wheat Research. So this is the importance of this work. And as I mentioned on that day, Norman Borlaug was, when he was receiving this Nobel Prize from Sweden, from Swedish government, one of the correspondent asked him, how you have contributed toward peace? You have increased the food production. How it is related to peace? Nobel Prize in Peace, that also for working on wheat crop. He said that peace in this world cannot be created on empty stomach. We have to keep their belly, we have to keep their stomach filled. Only then peace in this world can sustain. And so you appreciate the kind of the work, the importance of the work that was done. So if GR stands for Green Revolution, it was not exclusively due to one intervention. You see, science delivers, technology delivers when there is a suitable policy. Imagine a situation, you all people are from the computer and electronics specialization. If at one point of time, say tomorrow morning, government bans everything regarding electronics, hypothetically, and computers, what will happen? Will your technology go forward? It will be crashed immediately. So any technology, whether electronics, computer, IT, IoT, agriculture, health, etc., it works only when there is suitable enabling policies. So when the improved technology provided a base for the Indian population to grow more food in terms of wheat and rice, the government put enabling policies. And what government did? They invested in irrigation, they invested in fertilizer, and one of the important things government did, which you will appreciate today, Government created a system by procuring extra food from Indian farmer and selling it to general public through minimum support price MSP. MSP in the news nowadays for all those political reasons. So this was the concept when it was floated in India that if you don't procure the extra production from the farmer, market will crash. If market crashes, then farmers will be demotivated and they are not going to produce any extra grain for you. So government did a wonderful policy intervention. They purchased extra production from the farmer and developed a mechanism by which that extra production procured from the farmer, it was given to general public maybe at a reduced price because people need cheap food to eat 3 times a day. So enabling policy was put in place. And at the same time, there was very strong political will. I do not know how many of you might have heard the name of C. Subramaniam. He was agriculture minister at that time. When one Indian administrative officer, which called themselves as a superhuman being, IAS officer, he put a objection on the file that no, we cannot import dwarf wheat from other countries. Let Indian government, Indian farmer do it in their own way. At that time, C. Subramaniam, when he went to Prime Minister of India and told that this is the kind of the understanding our so-called superhuman being, we always treat them in independent India, that C. Subramaniam overruled that and the rest is all history. Had he not taken that extra step, probably things would not happen the way they happened. So there was a strong political will. And for that, C. Subramaniam was given Bharat Ratna. This is the highest civilian award Indian government can give. There was a partnership, very strong partnership. You might have heard Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. He is Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. At that time, he was Director General of Indian Council of Agriculture Research, the organization which I represent from right now. So Dr. Swaminathan and he is Dr. Norman Borlaug. And they are standing right now in a wheat field in Pusa campus, which is known as Indian Agriculture Research Institute, located in New Delhi. And on top of all these four, the most important thing that happened in India was farmer was very willing. He was very enthusiastic to accept the new interventions that agricultural scientists were offering to them. He accepted with open hands the new wheat varieties that were made available to him. He loved growing those varieties in field because he planted wheat in the month of November and in month of April beginning or March end, he will harvest wheat. Within 6 months, his production was doubled. So it was very enthusiastic. He was Indian farmer, very enthusiastic. Double production. Government assured commitment to purchase that extra production, and this is how the India was completely transformed. We got self-sufficiency in food. Malthus and Malthus were proved wrong. Britishers who said that India cannot survive, they will need schemes like PL 480. They were proved wrong. The simple reason, agricultural technology, policy intervention, enthusiastic farmer, political will. And on the basis of that transformation, we are still building better and better India continuously. And we are fortunate that we represent India at a time when we have food security in our country. And when such situation, your dependence on other countries gets reduced, you know what happens? You can take bold decisions. When you have to wait for ships to arrive from US to bring wheat for hungry people in India, you cannot take any action that can upset US or other countries, because they will immediately stop exporting wheat to your country. They will put sanctions on you. But another outcome of this bold step by Indian government, because of the self-sufficiency, is this. Atomic test in 1974 at Pokhran. Imagine a situation, had we not attained our full self-sufficiency, hypothetically assume yourself in that situation as Prime Minister of India. Will country take such a bold decision? No country can even think of what to talk of taking the bold decision. And this is the outcome of agricultural technology that provides strength to a country, to a rising population, to feed it sustainably 3 times a day, 7 times a week, 365 days a year. And this is another outcome of agriculture research, that this country was able to make a bold decision in terms of atomic test in 1974 at Pokhran, which is just 200 kilometers away from where right now I am sitting in Jodhpur. When India completed 50 years of independence, at that time, K.R. Narayanan, who was our president at that time, he was addressing in a special session called in Parliament House. He said that if you ask me, I quote, if you ask me, 2 most important achievements of this country, these are 2. Adherence to democratic system of governance from panchayat to parliament, and green revolution leading to adequate food availability, transforming India from begging bowl to overflowing basket, unquote. So you can imagine, this was one of the 2 most important achievements the President of India put before nation in 50 years after independence. And you will appreciate it much more. This line in the middle, which is growing almost parallel, this is the area available in our country. You see, the area has not gone up. Area has remained almost same. Rather, there is a more demand of area for special economic zones, for roads, for industry, for establishing cities, for expanding villages, etc., etc. So this area remains the same, but look at the production and look at the productivity. Using same resource, this is the beauty of this country. Using the same land, not even extra inch of the land has come to our availability. Rather, it has gone down by 3 million hectares. You see, using the same resource, this is the production that this country has achieved. If you ask me, 5 times increase in rice production, 15 times increase in wheat production, 13 times increase in maize production. So total area has been increased only by 1.26, but food production has gone up by almost 6 times. Then this happened, another history. Indian government passed a bill, Food Security Act 2013. No country in this world could ever thought of. 1 billion, 1.35 billion to be exact, and giving 1.3 billion population a right to food 3 times a day. It was because of this achievement. You can imagine the kind of the service agricultural science and farming community has given to this country. And things didn't stop over here. There was another revolution in milk. 1950, only 17 million tons. Today it is 185 million tons. 11 times increase. The data of the horticulture, the fruits, it is earliest available in 1991. At that time it was 95. Now it is 350 million tons. Earlier food was considered a diet of the sick people. Food were purchased at household level when somebody was falling sick in the house. And anyone purchasing food from the market, the person will ask that who is sick in your family. So that was a kind of the important commodity, but now you see how much horticulture, vegetables and fruits. You go in any small market, there's a row of small reddies and thellas in every small town selling best of the best quality of the fruits and vegetables. And also another blue revolution, 16 times increase from less than a million tons in 1951. Now we are producing, latest data is 13 million tons. So you see, these are some of the not only green revolution, but white revolution, golden revolution, and blue revolution. But dear friends, there are challenges ahead. Agriculture means, it doesn't mean that you once make a progress and it is forever. No. Every year you have to fill your granaries. गोदाम हर साल भरने पड़ेंगे, हर साल गोदाम खाली होंगे और फिर वापस भरने. It's a continuous challenge. We cannot be complacent, but there are a lot of challenges ahead, and one of the challenges is that still Indian population is growing very fast, almost 2%. And if you go by prediction of 2050, we will be beating China very soon in next 1 decade. And we are going to be #1 country as far as human population is concerned. And we will be 1.7 billion population. Unimaginable figure. I do not know what will happen to natural resources. And type of the food they are eating. Do you know? We are consuming less cereals. We are consuming more milk. We are consuming more meat. We are consuming more dairy products. And all those livestock, poultry, they are going to eat grains. So we have to produce grain not only for human being, but also for the poultry and livestock. So there will be greater need for food and feed. And at the same time, you are not going to have additional land unless we occupy Pakistan. There is a declining natural resources. What is happening to our water, I will come to later on. Malnutrition is still an issue. And climate change, it's really a big concern. So we need more food, we need better food, but from less of the land available and for bigger population. And at that time, then Prime Minister of India said that everything else can wait, but not agriculture. So this is the importance of agriculture I wanted to put before you. Let me present before you what is the future expected scenario and how IoT can help in that. You see, this is the small figure in which I am showing this is the timeline and this is the requirement of the food of our country. And if I put it year-wise, this is how we have progressed so far, right? And I simply extrapolate this line up to year 2070, then we will reach over here, which is around little over 400 million tons. But requirement will be around 500 million ton. Why? As I mentioned, because our food habits are changing, we need more meat, more poultry, more milk, more dairy products. So those livestock will also need some grains for the feed. So this is the trend we require, and this is the trend if we continue in the same business as usual, right? But at the same time, there's a climate change which will have adverse impact on agriculture production. So this is the expected trend if we do business as usual. So if I draw a line over here, there will be a gap of 100 million tons in 2050 if we do the business as usual. Let us go to year 2070. What will happen? That gap will expand further to almost 130 million ton. Imagine a situation of the India in 1960s. We were short by 10 million ton, right? If you remember the figure. And if you do the business as usual, we will be short by 130 million ton. Imagine a situation of 10 million ton shortage and 130 million ton shortage, again Malthus and Malthus, again PL 480, again sanctions, those kind of the things may appear if we don't take agriculture real to make it more dynamic, or if we take agriculture as granted in this country. Let me come to major challenges. The first is the degradation of natural resources. I do not know how many of you are aware of what our natural resources. Basically, three things: water, soil, and agrobiodiversity. Diversity of food, lot of crops, trees, horticulture, etc., etc. We know the population is growing, our demand of water is growing, so there has been over exploitation of resources. Water table people who are coming in this faculty development program from rural areas, especially from Rajasthan, they will understand what is happening to water table in our state and for that matter in other states as well. Reduce farm profitability. Compare income of farmer with income of non-farmer in this country. And this is how people are saying that we are making two countries within our country. One is India, one is Bharat. Because agriculture has been less profitable because of time shortage. I cannot address this issue because that will be really very complex. But it remains that agriculture profitability has been coming down. Let me say only one sentence, that salary of scientist and salary of the technocrat has been increased since 1950 by 300 times, and income of the farmer has gone up by 19 times. This is the data from the Government of India public domain. 300 times you and me are trying salaries, and farmer's income is enhanced 19 times. Youth is becoming completely disinterested in agriculture. Youth doesn't want to do agriculture. He wants to go in electronics, in computers, in white collar jobs, government jobs, private sector jobs, packages, 50 lakhs, 1 crore, multinationals. Fact is, there's a declining share of agriculture in gross domestic product because there's a huge imbalance. Land remains the same, 140 million hectare, population from 50 crore to 135 crore. So the land holding is becoming more and more fragmented. Very small piece of lands which are uneconomical. There's a huge disparities in agriculture and non-agriculture income. We want food, we want better food, but we don't like farmer. We don't want to do agriculture. And on top of that, if there are huge production in our country, there's a post-harvest loss and farmer is not getting price, his produce remains unsold. And this is the biggest challenge today, climate change. In the same season, if you take one crop, in the same season, from the time you plant your crop till you harvest your crop, within same crop season, you have flood happening in your field, you have drought happening in your field. So you can imagine my plight as a scientist. What kind of the varieties I want to breed, which is tolerant to more water, which is tolerant to less water, how many traits I need to integrate into new varieties. So this is the biggest challenge in the climate change. So that was my part, how agriculture in this country has evolved, how it has delivered, how people from the different sectors have joined hands together with the result that we have been able to achieve, which was thought as non-achievable by most of the world. Excuse me. My purpose in the next half is not that IoT can address all the challenges. All the challenges have to be addressed in a very comprehensive way, through policy intervention, through so many things. But I thought that probably spending some time on what IoT can do, what you as a representative of a young and educated generation can do for agriculture. And that's why I purposely spent time the way agriculture has evolved in this country. And I'm sure you are going to appreciate in a better way about the contribution of the farming community. IoT has stormed the whole world for the last decade or so. And even today, a 5-year-old kid is having all those kind of the wonderful gadgets. Let it smartwatch on your wrist, Google, Alexa, Siri in your iPhone. This IoT is affecting every aspect of life. And you can use any device at any given point of time, irrespective of where you are. So many networks are available to you, irrespective of what business you are engaged in, irrespective of what part of the globe you are in. So Internet of the Things has to offer a lot of things. And those things, you are the expert in what you can help in agriculture, but I have told you what are the challenges. And many a time people think that agriculture is stationary. Agriculture is not evolving with time. Look at the figure shown on the top right. How the agriculture has changed over a period of time, just by 4 figures. And fifth figure, I will show you in the next slides how it is going to be changed by engaging itself as one of the sector which is receptive to IoTs. So basically, IoT has do a lot of things in agriculture, but as on today, it is not as much popular as it is in other areas. But the demand is constantly growing, and I'm sure you must appreciate by this time that agriculture as such has been very receptive to technologies. I mentioned Indian farmers. He is receptive to new tools and techniques. He is receptive to new knowledge. And if the new knowledge is delivered in a comprehensive way, if that knowledge is ultimately ends into his increased production, and increased production is translated into increased income, only then Indian farmer, and for that matter, any farmer in any part of this globe, will be attracted towards any technology Indian, including IoTs. There are a lot of benefits I see as an agriculturist, benefits of IoTs. One is the efficiency. Efficiency of the inputs in IoT-based agriculture is much higher than the agriculture based on traditional means and traditional method of cultivation. Let me give you two examples. You know, we need irrigation, we give irrigation to crops, right? We consume 82% of the water available in India in agriculture. 82% of total water is consumed by agriculture. And you know what is the efficiency of water? 28% is the national average of irrigation efficiency in our country. Number two, the fertilizers that we apply to the crops to increase our productivity, we use around 125 million tons of fertilizers in our country to produce 300 million tons of the grains and around 300 million tons of the horticulture. But the efficiency of the fertilizer is again 30%. So excelled efficiency is one of the most important advantages with IoT-based agriculture. Expansion. We will be 9 billion people in 2020 on this earth, out of which 1.8 billion will be from India. And 70% of these people would live in urban areas. Let me give you another figure. Every year we are producing, you know it, we are creating an additional Australia in our country in terms of human population. You know it very well. Every year we are adding one Australia to our population, the existing population. Most of them want to move to cities, wants to stay in villages. Youth is disinterested. Population is still increasing. So what is happening? You are increasing the number of the consumers for food, but you are decreasing the number of the producers for food. This is a very, very volatile situation appearing, building up in our country. We are producing the consumers and we are reducing the producers. And once this imbalance, is created, it will be very difficult. So the expansion of agriculture has to be done in any way it is available. People are talking about vertical farming. Anywhere if you find space, supermarkets, your grounds everywhere, skyscrapers, anywhere you find a space, you have to grow your vegetables, you have to grow your crops, you have to go for vertical farming, because horizontally you cannot expand. There is a limit, 142 million hectares. So you have to go vertically as we are having multiple storage buildings in Bombay, in Delhi. Similarly, in times to come, you have to have multiple stories of the field in this country. Not only buildings, multiple stories of the fields. Reduced resources. I told you, water is available, 85%. There is a competition between domestic need. There is a competition from industrial need. Similar is the competition for land or your social special economic zones. Competition for energy. So reduced resources will be available for agriculture. How to really again further enhance? I think IoT is to offer a lot of exciting new innovations. Another thing is cleaner process. If you see our production process, particularly of milk, if you see the milk is produced the way it is produced in our dairies, right within Jaipur, I think half of you will live drinking milk. Completely unclean, unhygienic process. But I think IoT has to offer a lot of things to make the production process very clear, very clean. It's very agile. You can predict. You can estimate how much production you are going to get from this structure, which is based on which is basically using IoTs. The production environment has become more intensive, but you know what you are going to harvest. So agility. Quality product is much better because you can monitor quality either through crop sensors or through aerial drones or mapping of your farm. What are the resources available with you? Precision farming is one of the important things. Two things I mentioned before you. 28% efficiency of the irrigation, which is consuming more than 82% of the water available in our country. 30% efficiency of the fertilizers. But I think when we talk of the precision farming, in which you can control, you can basically implement variable rate of irrigation. What now farmer is doing? He is doing flood irrigation. Water is entering from one side of the field and it is moving in its own speed. But variable rate of irrigation intervened through IoTs, I think this is going to be a very, very important component. Smart greenhouses. Smart greenhouses, I think it's a going to be very important component of smart agriculture, where you can control your humidity, you can control temperature, you can grow any crop at any given point of time so that you fetch more market. Livestock monitoring. You might be aware there was a report in the recent past that if you consume milk or meat from a happy animal, the quality of milk and meat is better. So if you want a better food, you have to make your source happy, though you are sacrificing the animal. But if you want to consume meat, but thing is that you have to keep your livestock, which is basically crop for you, just like wheat and maize and rice. It's a crop for you. So thing is that you have to keep your crop happy, and to keep your happy, you have to really monitor what is happening to animal, which is grazing in your field, which you are rearing either for meat or for milk purpose. For that, you have to put a chip either in its tail or in the ear, so that you can control, you can evaluate the temperature of the body, the type of the stress that animal is going through, either temperature stress or hunger stress or nutrient stress. Those all kind of the information can be obtained on the basis of the individual animal which are grazing in your field. And right now information you are getting in your computer. So this is one of the important area which is going to affect agriculture, and particularly the livestock rearing, because of the better and because of the scientific monitoring of livestock. And once you produce happy animal, you will produce a better food. Agriculture drones are becoming reality in terms of crop health management, in terms of the improving the irrigation efficiency, in terms of the very precise plantation, and in the way the soil analysis is integrated into the crop production process. I don't want to make it really very intricate, but thing is that there's a lot of use of the drone-based applications in agriculture as well. And there's a possibility to have a data on a real-time basis. What is feeling of your crop which is growing right now in your field? You can feel your crop. And J.C. Bose has told us way back, more than 5-6 decades back, that the plants speak. Plant wants to speak to you. They have life. So you have to collect the real-time data. Are they comfortable in terms of the water availability? Are they comfortable in terms of the nutrient availability? Are they comfortable in terms of the plant population that you are maintaining in your field? Or there is overcrowding also in the plants, like overcrowding of human being in our country? So, you know, those the real-time data collection, it's processing, very fast processing, machine learning, machine-based learning, very fast processing, and so that your agricultural drones are going to become a very important component of farming as well. Pest management. Right now, what we are doing, we are able to spot a pest once it appears physically. Only then you will know that disease has come or the pest has come on your crop. But there are ways and means by which you can study your plant, the time it is infected by the fungus. Fungus may take 15 or 20 days to appear the symptom. The egg laid by the insect might remain in the tissue for the 10 or 15 days before it appears as a larva on your crop. But I think IoTs are going to empower farmer by which he can assess his pest, whether any fungus has infected his crop, whether some insect has laid the eggs either in the tissue or in the soil. So the pest management is a kind of another IoT-based application in agriculture. Water uses, 30% I said efficiency. But if you think of a situation where you can supply the plant, you can supply water to the plant as per its requirement. Right now, artificial intelligence based experiments we are conducting in my own institute. If in some near future you happen to be in Jodhpur, please do visit our institute and we will tell you how this artificial intelligence, IoTs, machine learning, your drones, they are being used in terms of the improving water use efficiency. Very common thing. We produce so much food in our country that FCI is running short of the facilities to store it safely. If you produce more without connecting with the market, this is going to be your future. The Indian farmer has produced so much that we have started taking farming community for granted. That's why 19 times increase in his income, vis-a-vis 300 times increase in our salary. I think the tech-enabled warehouse, technology-enabled, so that we can really keep a real-time monitoring system in place. What is happening to your produce that you are storing in your FCI godowns or in the open storage? This is another IoT-based application which probably your generation is going to give to this country. Let's talk about in today's context, pandemic, COVID-19. We are afraid of physical touch. We cannot accept a vegetable bag from the vegetable vendor. We have to sanitize our hands. So many things. I think in this kind of the scenario. Again, IoT-based agriculture where physical touch is much less. There's a more use of automation process. I think IoT-based agriculture, at least in the post-pandemic era, till time some medicine or some vaccination is evolved or invented, I think again during the post-pandemic era, the IoT-based agriculture is going to be very, very important. There are a lot of key players, even the post-COVID, US, Canada, Israel, Australia. I have given you some examples. I will skip through this. And the thing is that in the recent past, there's a lot of increase in the, the supply chain has been disrupted, but the business of the IoT-based thing has been going up. Let me give you one simple example of how people are putting a lot of efforts in IoT-based agriculture, and there are a lot of number of publications that are coming up. Indian system is also very responsive, and the research that being conducted today, they can be partitioned into monitoring, prediction, what are the logistics that are available, and how to improve the control system. Now I will give you some examples. The IoT based or startup based, you see, there is an increase of 350%, 3.5 times more business is being predicted, is being realized basically on the basis of the IoT based interventions. Let us take some examples. This one startup, AgNext, it is having a funding of 4.2 million US dollars. It is using computer vision, spectroscopy, and IoT-based devices merged with the integrated artificial intelligence, and the processes. The companies are using this for agriculture, and basically they are a part of the agriculture food chain. A lot of participants. It was founded in 2016 in Chandigarh. AgNext. Another example, AquaConnect, having a funding of 1.1 billion US dollars in 2017, and this is helping the fish farmers. The name of that startup is AquaConnect. So this is another what they are doing. I'm not the best expert in that, but this is a business that is building up. Let us take one example of Fasal. What Fasal is doing, it is having again a almost 2 million US dollar business, founded in 2018, operating from Bangalore. And what it is doing, it is capturing real-time database. It is delivering farm-specific and crop-specific actionable advisories to its consumers, to its clients, and the field, and they have multiple measures, right from the production to protection to the quality assurance, etc., etc. So this is another kind of the intervention that is happening in our country. Fresh Cards, Jaipur based, and it is providing farm advisories. It is delivering quality seeds. It is delivering quality pesticides and good fertilizers to the farmer's doorstep. Gramophone, again a kind of the retail services from this startup at the community level and also through the input retailers. Again, very, very important intervention. Intel Labs, 2 million US dollars. And what they are doing, they are simply assessing food quality. The food that you are eating, we are not sure of its quality. If some consumer wants something in this country, that what kind of the food we are eating, There's no parameter. Don't you think it's a dichotomy in our system that the vegetables and fruits which we consume for our health, they are being sold on footpath. And the shoes that we wear in our feet, they are sold in air-conditioned showrooms. So this is dichotomy of the present times. So these Intello labs are doing a great service. The people who are quality conscious, they want to know what we are eating. We have right to know this. Nobody can feed us the vegetable full of pesticides. Nobody can feed us the type of the milk that is full of so many disease-causing bacteria. So this is again a consumer-linked IoT-based application. Many a time, you do not know what you are eating. You might have heard in the newspaper, artificial milk. This is another opportunity. O4S, original for sure. You see the market coming up. People want to know the product that I have produced from the market, it is original. People are building business on this. Again, the technological intervention. Indian Council of Agriculture Research, we are venturing into how to connect this technology to the production, and not only production, but post-production as well. Our Prime Minister has told that 1 lakh crore financial facility will be made available. 350 agri startups are already supported through such schemes, which means the business opportunities are building up. Krishi Sense, it's another a kind of service based on the decision support system in which we use the sensors and then we acquire the data through web-based public services. Krishi Sense. One of the difficult things farmers face nowadays, blue bulls, wild boars, some thief coming in the farm. Can we think of connecting safety of the individual farms with these IoT-based interventions? Yes, you can. There are efforts going on. 8. Agriculture intrusion detection. Farmer is sleeping happily in his farmhouse. What he has done, an alarm will work, or he will get a message from the cell phone if there is any intruder in his field in form of blue bull, wild boar, or any thief. So farmer can sleep happily after hard work in the field, and the technology can be of his help. If you ask me, the most important component of artificial intelligence or IoT-based farming, immediate future comes in the subject of horticulture, because it requires good investment, it requires good use of technology, it requires good connectivity with the market, and once we put them all together, I think the artificial intelligence or IoT-based farming in horticulture has the most important, most immediate future. These are some of the selected examples. These people are operating from Bengaluru, Crop in Bose, Chandigarh, AgNext, I always mention, and also from the Noida, AgsMed, Martic. Horticulture, in case of Karnataka, government of Karnataka has signed MOU with Microsoft. And the subject is forecasting of price using digital tools. this is the big data analysis that you can do to really make a good forecast regarding price. Because otherwise what will happen, you produce, there's no market, market will crash, and you have to dump your tomato or potato on the roadside or on the road, as you might have seen in the past. IBM has signed an MOU with Government of India to provide weather forecast and soil moisture information to farmers to take pre-informed decisions, so that how best season is going to be in the next 4 months. Accordingly, if it is less rainfall, I will grow a crop which requires less water. And if the rainfall is expected to be more, I will put a crop or the variety which is more productive in case there's more water. So MOU has been signed with IBM. Again, Agri-Udan, this is our initiative of Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Government of India has launched Food and Agri-Business Accelerator 2. 40 agricultural startups have already been in place. Challenges IoT is also, I'm not the person to really address those challenges, but some of them could be, you need to think over it, that what is how much is the standardization, which can really fulfill the need of the Indian farmer. Power management. Still in rural areas, availability of the power is a big issue. Security, the data you share. What are the security issues? Is your personal information is really being hacked or being used for their own gains by some companies? There's need to develop modular designs which can really fit into smaller parts. And there's need to improve some unit cost. Cost is a factor. I think, fortunately, some sensors and some other other tools, they are becoming cheap with time. But I am told there are certain things which are still very costly and poor compatibility. The IoT-based solutions should be in such a way that they can be integrated what is already available with the consumer, with his existing infrastructure, so that he doesn't need to replace everything. I think the poor compatibility is really a big issue. And also some of the issues which are related to the software engineering, robustness, the kind of environmental condition in our country we are having, extreme temperatures. Say, for example, I have my regional station at 2 places. One is Jaisalmer. Temperature in the winter goes 50 plus 50 . I have a regional station at Leh, Ladakh, where my scientists are working. Temperature is -40. So you have to have those robust IoT tools that can really work across that range of temperature, that range of humidity, and other factors. So I hope that I better appreciate the opportunities that are being created by IoTs, and I assume you would better appreciate the achievements made in agriculture and better appreciate the hard work done by the Indian farming community. And the fact remains that we will need more food, we will need better food, we will need safe food, we will need healthy food for more people, but from less of resources. And for that, we have to improve the productivity, we have to improve the efficiency, so that we can address in a comprehensive way issues related to food, issues related to nutrition and health, and the top of everything, issues related to environment and employment. If we don't take care of these two things in the long run, we are moving towards a devastation. And the agriculture has to be the science-led intervention, because our next generation is really looking forward to a science-led agriculture. So we have to be not the same, we have to be better with time. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and I'm sure that I hope that I was able to reach you without any disruption because of the technological interventions. So thank you very much, and somebody has to guide me how to unshare it.
Thank you so much, sir, uh, for your valuable this. It was quite comprehensive. 1.5 hours, uh, and the most beautiful part was the journey of.
Can I see you? Who is speaking? I need to see you actually. Please put your audio on video.
Yeah, good morning, Professor. Very nice, highly informed. Good morning, Professor.
Yes, Prakshit. So I need to be overstep by 6 minutes, but I hope that you won't mind it. I cut it down quite substantially in the later half, because I thought that you are more intelligent, more informed than what I am, at least in IoTs. The major purpose was to really make aware what the agriculture scenario of this country is.
Dr. Mohan, kindly unmute. Dr. Mohan, unmute and then.
Yeah, Professor, I have a small question regarding pesticides and health issue of the crops are concerned. Any of you explained us crop health by AI technology, but what is the growth in the pesticide reduction after applying this technology, Professor? That's all. A small question for you, Professor.
I didn't get later part of your question.
Yeah, just repeat, Professor. Now, the artificial intelligence is helping to decrease the disease of the crops. The crops destruction is decreased or improved by the crop health is improved by AI technology. I see in one of your slide, Professor. We are using pesticides more and more. The pesticides usage for the health of the beings are very bad. In what extent, percentage wise, after use of this technology, the reduction of the pesticides happened, Professor? That's it.
In fact, you have to tell me this, because this is one area which has become a gray area, and the reason is very simple. The recommendations of the pesticides or fungicides or insecticides, they are in place. But whenever farmer goes to the market to procure those pesticides, it's a conflict of interest by the person who are selling those pesticides. And they always say that if you put less, your disease or pest may not be completely controlled. Because what he has to apply, hardly 100 ml in 1 acre of land. And farmer many a time, he's illiterate. He's not able to appreciate that this is the recommendation that has come out of a series of research experiments. But the more important role comes from the person who is selling it, and his direct interest is to sell it more, because that is related to his business. So this is one of the important things, that this not discriminatory, but unscientific and uninformed use of the pesticides. And people have to be really educated for this. And let me tell you another psychology of the farmer. You follow Hindi?
Yes, sir. मालूम होता है साहब, बोलिए साहब.
You see, what term they have given in Hindi for this pesticide? Dawai. It is not dawai, it is poison.
Yeah.
Right? You try to understand the psychology of the business people.
Yes.
Business is really killing sometimes, you know. The term he has used, dawai. It is not dawai, it is poison. Number one. Let me give you another example. There is a qualified person having bee pharma to sell the medicine for human consumption. But there is unqualified person to sell the pesticides which are applied on a crop that is also consumed by human being.
Yeah.
So there are certain things in which, I mean, a lot of things have to be done. And let me tell you very clearly, the consumers are not really very sensitive regarding safety of the food the way consumers are in Europe. I have worked for quite some time in Europe. There people really will disclose with you what they are selling to you.
Thank you very much, Professor. So, time being, no regulatory bodies are there for the control of pesticides. Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much.
Very good morning, sir. This side Samir Jain, sir. So I would like to ask a very simple question, sir. Sir, how do we incorporate this agriculture in computer science? So what is the very unfortunate thing happened in the academia as well as in the research centers? We give a problem related to the travel. We give the problem related to the transportation to our students, but we are not able to give the problems to the agriculture related. First and foremost is we don't have the data. Second thing is we don't have the problems. So how do we address this problem, sir, in the academic as well as in the research institutions? Because many a time students are solving a problem of like say the transportation, the infrastructure problems, right? The power problem, the energy problem, but they are not willing to take the problem of agriculture. I think there is a gap. So you are the right person to address this kind of concern. And if you do so, then we will try to address your thing into our campus. Thank you, sir.
I agree with you. And this is a typical syndrome in our government system. The departments, different departments, prefer to work in their individual silos. They don't talk to the concerned person. Otherwise, I can tell you the examples I have given you. You see, this is a science-driven, technology-driven growth. But only thing is that many a time, the integration of the different departments, it is not up to the extent it should have been. And I think such kind of the interaction through your the video conferencing, the bringing together different people from the different departments. You see, you need much less about agriculture, and I understand much less about the IoT things. But once we come together, but who will bring us together? Very few people are working in a comprehensive way.
Yeah, there is one question, sir.
Good morning, sir. This is Dhirendra Gangwar from Dehradun Uttarakhand Technical University. Hello. Parikshit,
Gangwar,
sir.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir. Gangwar, sir.
Good morning, Yadav, sir. It was very informative and very, I think, motivative session from you. We could got many research insights to continue research work in this area. But my question is that, sir, laboratory, but when we go to the farmers, this directly ask, okay, that's fine, that we are going to spend 2 to 3 lakh rupees per acre or per hectare for these interventions. What returns we will get out of these investments? In their investment that they will be having the value, they will be getting the fair prices in the market. Sir.
In fact, you see, the farmer is absolutely right in asking this. when we can ask about package before joining a company, that I am giving my expertise to you, how you are going it back to me in terms of the package. The farmer has right to ask that if I invest 2 lakhs of rupees on your advice, what I am going to get in return. I think he is a very intelligent investor. He has to be intelligent investor. No one, each one of us, you see, even when we purchase a small mobile of 50,000 rupees, how many times we Google this? What are features? What are the different advantage, merits, pros and cons of one thing? The farmer has right to ask, but only thing is that it requires many times the huge amount of the funds. And the farmer's difficulty is that the credit is not available with them. That's why you have to connect the right policies with the farming community. And whenever we go to any non-farming community, we don't ask for any document to give a loan on car. But we ask 100 documents from the farmer to give a loan on the tractor. Tractor is life. Car is not your life. Car is your luxury. So government has to think, bank credit system has to think many a time how you can really develop a technologies, the policy intervention, not technology, policy intervention, which are farmer friendly. How you can really help them. You are making farmer dependent on you every time by लोन माफ कर दीजिए, छुट्टी माफ करने से काम नहीं चलेगा, उसको competent बनाइए ना. Farmer has to be made competent, not a dependent. And for that, there's a lot of things that need to be done in terms of the policy change in this country. And simple reason is that we have take farming and we have take farmer granted in this country. That's why 19 times increase in farmer income, 300 times increase salary, it of mine and Dr. A.K. Gupta also, and include you, Gangawa.
Sir, thank you so much, sir.
I think your session was very informative, sir. I think there are a lot more questions, but I will request all the participants to keep some questions. Maybe you can interact with sir on the email also. He has given his email. Thank you so much, sir. It is almost around 2 hours sessions we planned for. I thought you'll be delivering for 1 hour, 1 hour, 10 minutes, and some interaction you'll be having, but it has gone almost to 2 hours. So thank you so much, sir. I think all the participants will be motivated enough. They will take this lecture. The prime reason for incorporating this session, this particular session, and inviting sir as an expert, that you will have expectations from the agricultural, side, and then you can propose the solutions. And as sir has very rightly put, that our farmer is, they are looking at the scientist community to give them simple solutions. If you'll see, the desktop was never popular, the laptops were never popular, but the smartphones have become very popular. The one of the simple reason is because of ease of handling. So if we can provide some solutions like this, then we can change the life of our citizens and other citizens as well. So thank you so much, sir. Again, from the bottom of my heart, that I'm very thankful that you accepted our invitation for guest of honor. Also, you accepted our invitation to give one keynote lecture. Also, thank you so much, sir.
You're always welcome. Thank you. Have a good day and a good morning, Dr. Gupta साहब. कैसे हैं? Unmute.
Gupta sir, kindly unmute.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. I'm fine.
Great. Good. Pratap, I hand over this baton to you now. Go ahead.
Thank you so much,
And
sir.
I have some other business to do. So thank you, Parikshit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good day, sir.
Have a great day, sir.
Thank you, and have a good program, and wish you all the best.
Thank you,
Thanks.
sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. I'll request our participants if they can take 10 minutes